fellow exorcists, and welcome to the Lay of the Film Exorcist. Tonight I will be reviewing Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. When the feeling took root, that desire to look, to move closer, to touch. Whenever it started growing, it definitely bloomed the moment she and Kathleen Miller walked under the flashing neon sign of a lesbian bar called the Telegraph Club. Suddenly, everything seemed possible. But America in 1954 is not a safe place for two girls to fall in love, especially not in Chinatown. Red Scare paranoia threatens everyone, including Chinese Americans like Lily, with deportation looming over her father despite his hard-won citizenship. Lily and Kath risk everything to let their love see the light of day. Oh my god, I love this book so fucking much. I could not stop listening to it. Now, I am a bit embarrassed to say that I did not read this through a paperback or a hardcover. I did end up listening to it on Audible, one of my favorite tools right now when I need to read a book. And that's because this made it so fucking easy to read this book. Every time I got a chance, every moment I had, I would listen to this book because, trust me, this is a really long book, and if you don't have the time, it's not easy to finish. I mean, I'd listen to it on my lunch breaks, I'd listen to it when I was alone, when I would walk to work, when I needed a bit of time to myself. This book was there, and let me just say, while I was looking for a really good romance story about two young girls in the early 50s, I ended up getting so much more. Where Carol, the movie that we reviewed around Christmas, was heavily based on the romance between Carol and her lover. This one, yes, it's somewhat focused on Lily and Kath. It focuses more on the hardships that Lily has to deal with when she goes to the Telegraph Club, and the strain that the secret has on her. This is 1950s this is San Francisco, sorry about that. Where San Francisco today is known as the city where anything can happen, anything can be done, no bars attached. Back then, it was still pretty much a scary place for the LGBT community. You couldn't go around saying that you were gay or lesbian or transgender like you can now. Especially during this time when everyone would connect the homosexuals to the communists. Everybody was so filled with hate during this time that they honestly would have killed you if they found out you liked another guy. Just anyone finding out that you were a part of the community could get you arrested, beaten up, deported. They could claim that you were brainwashed by certain people into doing it. And we see that a lot with Lily here. She's keeping this a secret, and when it does come out later on near the end of the book, it fucking destroys her life. She loses her best friend who, let's be honest, Sharon was kind of a bitch and had always been a bitch to Lily. They've been good friends for years, but she didn't deserve Lily as a friend at all, and she was just that popular girl who thought the world of herself and couldn't focus on her friends, only focused on herself, and just was a huge fucking brat, especially as a 17-year-old, where Lily, she's held at the standard, like most Chinese people during that time, to be the good little Chinese girl who does whatever her parents tell her, doesn't go off on adventures, uh, works on her studies, goes, always tells her parents where she's going, uh, plans to marry someone in the future, plans to have kids, uh, relies on the idea that essentially you are a woman during this time and you have no future. I mean, you can go to college and you can become like a clerk or you can work certain jobs, but you still had the wage gap back then that we still have now. And it was even harder for the Chinese community where, for certain reasons, there was still a lot of hate for them. Like, you could, like with the Irish during the Industrial Revolution of America, like during the early 20th century to late 19th century, the Irish were being beaten up because they were seen as a completely different species from actual white people in America, and because they came over and because of their red hair and all this, they would get beaten the shit out of just for going to work or because they sold jobs. The Chinese people had to deal with very similar things. Like, while they were a part of the group that did beat on the Irish, they also couldn't leave Chinatown in San Francisco or New York or all over the United States without a Chinese girl being called a China doll or being made fun of or constantly being treated like she was essentially a prostitute. Where the Chinese man, pretty much the same thing, but they could have the shit beat out of them. They could have they were getting paid about the same as women, maybe a bit more, but also a lot less than the white men. They were threatened with deportation if they didn't rat out certain people during the Red Scare. And that's because this was right after World War II, when China was was starting to come out as communists and joining the Soviet Union or working with the Soviet Union after all the work they put into to get support from the United States to help them during World War II against the Japanese. But anyway, this is a really good period piece because it does take into account the ideas of raids that happened on certain lesbian and gay bars. We'll also take into account that there were certain people that learned to live in secrecy as lovers and homosexuals. Like, we do see in this very flamboyant, not flamboyant, we get to see, I gotta think of the exact term, but it is the female version of a cross-dresser. Well, it's a female cross-dresser. Her name is Tommy Andrews. And he's a big part of this. He's what gains Lily to realize that she is a lesbian because of him. She ends up going to the Telegraph Club with Lily. No, wait. Lily goes with Cav to the Telegraph Club after seeing a picture of Tommy. And this is after Sharon tells Lily to not hang out with Cav because Calf got caught recently flirting with another girl, and that got that one girl in trouble, so she made a name for herself. Oh, here it is. They're called drag queens. So Tommy Andrews is a drag queen. Lily sees Tommy Andrews, and Calf and Lily go to the Telegraph Club. They meet all these fun characters in here, including Tommy Andrews' girlfriend named Linda, who plays a huge part later on in the story, helping Lily after after she comes out to her mother that she's a lesbian, which during that time was a huge no, because when you're Chinese, there's a problem with Lily's dad where he refused to rat out this one kid who kept going to these communist rallies, and so he's being threatened with deportation after his citizenship papers were taken away. And now this is after the Telegraph Club gets rioted. Now they get the police raid the Telegraph Club and force Lily to run away at night, go back home. She gets caught by the town gossip of Chinatown, who tells her friend that they caught her working at night, coming out of the Telegraph Club while it was being raided, and this causes a down spiral for Lily, because she is forced to come out to her mother. She loses her friend. Her father and mother agree to send her away to Pasadena to go live with her aunt, because this is causing problems for her family. This might cause problems for her family too. On top of this, Calf got arrested during the raid, but then she gets released and essentially goes into hiding in her own home and breaks communication with Lily. And this is when Lily goes to Linda, Tommy Andrews' girlfriend, who explains to her that sooner or later her family will accept her, but it's just not going to be now, because these are hard times. And you do feel bad for Lily, where she just found out that she's in love with this girl who she's been hanging out with for a while, and now she can't tell anybody about this. She can't express that love openly outside of the Telegraph Club and outside of a custodian closet in the high school, and a certain bathroom in the high school that nobody goes to because it's known as the period bathroom. And because of this, Lily is taking the brunt of essentially what's going on in the 50s with the Red Scare and the all-around dislike of the LGBTQ community. Like, shit hits the fan heavily. But we do get the romance part in this when Lily realizes her feelings for Kat, confesses to her, and they start making out and hanging out more while she's helping Sharon prepare for the Miss Chinatown pageant. And it is one of the better parts of this. Like, I love this book so much. I like the historical parts in it. I like the story of what Lily has to go through while she's trying to figure out that she's lesbian, but my favorite part in most books is the romance, and they do this very well with these two girls who can't really share the secret outside, so they have to sneak around. And when Lily is forced to leave and never see Kat again, like, it is heartbreaking as hell. And this book puts in a lot of work into making you hate Lily's family for breaking up her and Kat. Like, I was so fucking pissed off when I heard her aunt and her mother talk down to her, and then the problems with her father. Like, I get it. Her father's sympathizing with her and trying to save her and trying to make sure that she has a good job and a good future and she doesn't end up living alone like the one scientist that he knew, or the one doctor that he met who had her future taken away from her because she was a lesbian. I still really fucking hate this family for what they did to their daughter, like not accepting her, not trying to understand her. Like, the mother literally tells her, there are no lesbians in this family. Like, you are not allowed to be a lesbian. You are not allowed to see this girl ever again. Like, I can understand why Lily fucking left for that night. Like, I've gone through the same problems, like, not as severe, but also, when I came out as bisexual, there were a lot of jokes, and there still are, and, like, I was lucky to have Cinema Witch, who openly accepted me. Like, she was my Linda, essentially, in this book. I also love how we do get the epilogue where Lily and Kath do meet again, and we do find out that they had been writing letters to each other for the past year after Lily was forced to leave and move to Pasadena with her aunt and uncle. And we do get the hint that they will meet again, they will meet up more. They will continue to write to each other, and this relationship will continue. And just, this is a really good book, and I heavily recommend it to anyone who hasn't read it already, or if you have read it, I do recommend reading it again, because Melinda Lowe put so much work into this. Like, listening to her ending notes and all the research she put into this story, it's just, this is a brilliant novel, and I really hope one day I come back to listening to it and I can find more like this. Like, 11 out of 11. Like, I can't give this a higher rank, because honestly, I'm already going up past the 10 out of 10 rank. But yeah, 11 out of 11. If you haven't read this, go read it. It is an amazing novel, and I can't praise it enough, and I can't praise Melinda for making such a brilliant story on the hardships that lesbians and homosexuals had to go through during this time. Like, I'm not kidding this. I liked Carol, but this is honestly a whole lot better than Carol. Well, by far. And yeah, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and click the little notification bell for more videos. And have a great night, and please go support your fellow LGBTQ member, because they have gone through a lot throughout the years and definitely need your support and need allies. Like, the most you can do is show your support. So have a great night, and thank you for listening.